Want to say all praises to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh the brothers to the apostles of Great Millstone. Shalom to all the brothers them in the highway and byway, preaching this word in sincerity and in truth. I'm Brother Shapar from the James Jamaica camp. I was watching a sit down by the brother Ariala and GMS Dallas in classroom 3. The title of the video was World War 3 Algorithms, the Big Picture. And the sit down that the brother did was a very beautiful sit down, man. Yeah, very edifying sit down. It basically covering the economic situation the US is now faced with. I mean, basically going into the SDR, the IMF basket of currencies, and the inclusion of China to that basket of currencies. Yeah, and what problem it poses for the US economy. Basically, what I do, I go and piggyback on the brother sit down, seeing just for add on a little bit to what the brother actually did bring out. Yeah, someone want to take it from another angle, because there's a double-edged sword coming at America right now, because not only the reserve currency status is being threatened. Now you have the petro dollar is being threatened. Yeah, and I think it got briefly in that, but the petro dollar, but I want even take it further, seeing on how the petro dollar under threat. So what I really want to bring out now is another topic that basically never get covered, which is bilateral trading. Seeing what is bilateral trading? Basically, I play some videos still where basically give you a quick explanation about bilateral trading and how it will affect the US economy also.
So what is bilateral trade? Bilateral trade is the trade solely between two countries over an agreement. The aim of a bilateral trade agreement is to get rid of tariffs and many things that would usually get in the way of trade between two different countries. A bilateral trade agreement is the trade solely between two countries, with the aim to get rid of tariffs and many things that make trade more expensive for certain countries. In this situation, since it is directly through two parties, the negotiation doesn't take that long, and you can use things like oil, food, other commodities, and work employment as, services as instead of money.
Yeah. So basically, in the brother breakdown, you see a video was there basically showing that all nations basically when them trading them goods, them have to either sell US goods in order to get US dollar, or to borrow US dollar in order to trade between each other.
First, we're going to show you this. It's a diagram from my book. China, and this is just an example, wants oil from Russia. They have to exchange their currency for US dollars, and then they give those US dollars to Russia. Then they receive their oil. So even though, as I said, it has nothing to do with the US dollar, they're still exchanging the yuan for that US dollar in order to give it to Russia. Why is this the case? Well, the reason a reserve currency is used is because it is seen as being stable. When you're doing international trade, you want this sense of stability because you need to predict 3 months, 6 months, a year, and further on into the future that you will have these stabilities, because of course these agreements that these countries sign are not for the next day. They may be for years down the road. So we need to ensure stability. So that's exactly why a reserve currency is chosen in the first place. And this is the burden, though, that it puts on any particular nation. I'll get into more of that shortly, but I just wanted to show you another way of showing you this diagram. And it's a similar situation here, but even more simple. And you can see the flags being used to represent the countries. Russia does an exchange with China. So they are interacting between each other, and off to the west over here, we have the US. Now, they're not part of this exchange at all, really. They're not dealing with the oil, and essentially they're not the one transacting between these two. But if you look at this one, they are benefiting, and essentially it is free money in a way, and they're simply just sitting on this big pile of cash, all because of their reserve currency status. The petrodollar, for example, is something that makes them incredibly successful at what they're doing.
Now, in bilateral trading, this process basically become null. You know what I mean? So nations can trade directly what them please to trade with, apart from using the US dollar. Yeah. So what really take place now, Russia and all them other nations here going about and trading by going around the US dollar, not using the US dollar. And if you remember correctly, the brother sit down basically point out that if the US dollar is not being used as the petrodollar, see, it basically valueless, because there was agreement, I think it was in the breakdown also, what you call it, the Bretton Woods agreement. Basically the US dollar was chosen as the real reserve currency solely by the fact that it was redeemable by gold. So the confidence of the nations them seeing the US dollar as a stable foundation for trade and was that it was backed by gold. Now when that standard was removed, as you could see in the brother video, when that standard was removed, them did have to forget another standard in order to maintain that confidence in the other nations them for use it. So that another standard basically become the petrodollar. See, now the petrodollar maintain it reign because of the same reason nations have to use the US dollar in order to buy oil. You know what I mean? But now the risk of bilateral trading put the petrodollar at risk, so therefore automatically seeing the US seeing in a situation now where the US dollar is not gonna be that feasible anymore. You know what I mean? And all them US dollar that was printed over the years, seeing all them QE will bring new US dollar in existence. If nations not using the US dollar, seeing to the trading anymore, guess where all them dollars going to go back? And when all them dollars go back, what you think are gonna happen in America, man? See, and we're in the midst of the process right now, because guess what? All them nations are already going about making deals with bilateral trading, man. I'll play some videos to just say further push the point.
Chinese President Xi Jinping met with Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev in Beijing on Tuesday. This is the second meeting between the two leaders since March. President Xi noted the two nations are good neighbors and strategic partners. He says their cooperation under international tensions is vital to promote a global economic recovery, particularly helping emerging economies. Medvedev said both sides can improve their work together in such areas as energy and cultural exchanges. Earlier in the day, he also met with Chinese Premier Li Keqiang. CCTV's Tong Bo has more.
For more reciprocal relations, Russian Prime Minister started his 3-day visit in China today as a guest of Chinese Premier Li Keqiang. During his visit, he will co-chair the 18th regular China-Russian premiers meeting with his Chinese counterpart. The upcoming talks in Beijing will cover a wide range of issues, including ways of boosting bilateral trade.
我们不行啊，就加强。
We reached a new and important consensus on not only strengthening the Sino-Russian strategic cooperation partnership, but also further improving pragmatic cooperation, especially big projects. I believe the meeting this time is successful, and Mr. Medvedev's visit is successful as well.
Get some thoughts about what will happen to the dollar, maybe what will happen to the ruble as well. Jim Rogers is author and financial commentator, joining us on the line. Hi there, is it being overblown, the amount, a threat the dollar's under, or is Putin on the right line here?
Putin is on exactly the right line. It has not been overblown, Kevin. America is the largest debtor nation in world history, and the debts are getting worse and worse and worse. The world needs something to compete with the U.S. dollar. The Chinese and the Russians are doing the right thing to try to find something else.
The ruble's been badly battered over the last couple of months. So we hear the central bank is going to let it float today. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it's these big deals that Russia's signed with China and vice versa, and they're going to do it in their own currencies, that's really given the ruble a boost, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. But again, Kevin, the dollar's a seriously flawed currency, and people need something else to use, and whether it's the ruble or the renminbi or what, I don't know. I suspect it'll be the renminbi, but the world is starting to realize it must move away from the U.S. dollar.
We're going to see any reaction to this news from the U.S. today, do you think?
No, not much. The U.S. thinks that they're in charge and they don't have to worry about anything. No. I hate to say it, I'm an American citizen, but you know, there's a lot of arrogance still in the United States, especially about the dollar.
China and Malaysia also agreed to set up a joint bank as well, didn't they? How much is that going to contribute to the ongoing rise in the Pacific region?
Well, it's another small step in the right direction. Malaysia has under 30 million people, so it's not that big a deal. But it's another step. We're having step after step. The Chinese have done the same with Singapore and lots of other places. And every step, you know, you start off moving 1 kilometer, but with one step at a time. We're heading towards 1 or 2 or 5 kilometers.
Are we heading any closer towards a time, maybe thinking of the BRICS nations now setting up a bank, any closer to a time when the dollar won't be used as the reserve currency?
Not this year, not next year, but certainly by the end of this decade, you're going to see many people use other things.
What's up, Truth Seekers? Sean here with TruthFed.com. Now, do you remember, I don't know, several months ago or over the last few months when I said, hey, watch out for these Chinese and Russian alliances, watch out for Iran and China and Russia, look for them to start doing deals outside of the dollar, because my whole thing was, you know, all these sanctions are going to do nothing but force the hand, and Russia's going to have no choice, basically, but to start making deals with other countries for gas or goods and services, oil, what have you, in something other than dollars. That's kind of what happens when you say, well, we have the world reserve currency, but if you don't do what we want, then you can't use our currency. Well, then they're just going to have to use another currency. And if you remember, I warned about this big gas deal, massive gas deal that was being reported by Zero Hedge, that was going to take place between China and Russia, and that there's a big alliance happening there. And then you have the Iran and Russian oil for goods deal instead of using the dollar. Well, now it's being reported by Zero Hedge that Russia holds a de-dollarization meeting, China, Iran willing to drop the US dollar from bilateral trade. So basically they're having these meetings, they're calling it a de-dollarization, and it appears, according to this information I'm reading on ZeroHedge.com, and I'll be sure to put all this information on TruthFed as well, that Iran and China are on board to do these deals and to start making trade in ruble as an example. So Voice of Russia reports, citing Russian press sources, that the country's Ministry of Finance is ready to greenlight a plan to radically increase the role of the Russian ruble in export operations while reducing the share of the dollar-denominated transactions. Governmental sources believe that Russian banking sector is ready to handle the increased number of ruble-denominated transactions. transactions. Now, personally, I don't blame anybody for not wanting to deal with any world reserve currency. Every world reserve currency, and there's been several, has eventually failed, and people have eventually wanted to get away from it because they can't stand the control and everything that comes along with it. Now, if, as Americans, why should you be concerned about this? Well, it's because it's just like I've been predicting. Because basically what will happen is once these kind of trades start happening and countries like Russia start moving away from using the dollar in bilateral trades, and they start using their own currency, and they start using oil for goods, and they start doing these kind of deals, the rest of the world's going to go, hey, I guess we can bail from the US dollar as well. And then what comes back to the United States is hyperinflation. And I've been warning about this for a couple of years. It's inevitable. If it wasn't Russia, it would be another country at some point. And it's just, it's just inevitable. We're printing money into oblivion. We have the largest debt in the history of the world. The rest of the world is looking for a de-Americanized world, a de-dollarized world, as Russia is putting it. And there's moves, and there's going to be moves to move away from the US dollar.
Yeah, remember just straight on precept. This is Habakkuk 2:6. Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increase it which is not his. Okay, because when the US basically get a cut out of every deal where a man make, seen between children and one another, basically, them thing there are just straight right thievery, man, robbery, man. Seeing, I have another scripture say, woe to the bloody city, it is full of robberies, man. Seeing, so all America do is try to rip off them other nations here. Seeing, and to him that layeth himself with thick clay, because the US tend to print money into existence, man. You have this QE situation where them have QE 1, 2 going to infinity. You know what I mean? Putting themselves in a whole heap of debt. What most I think are 18 plus trillion going to 19 trillion right now in debt. See, never look on the debt clock since recently, but somewhere in that region, see the word here in the text basically, which is clear, meaning debt, come from the Hebrew but ibatia. If I'm correct, see what I mean? Debt, which is financial debt. You know what I mean? So that what take place now. And as we say, all them currencies coming back home to America, man, when them bilateral trading take place.
Today in the United States, any money is counterfeit and so worthless unless issued by the federal government. And anyone who knowingly tries to spend counterfeit money may be fined a large amount and sent to jail.
You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Here are the facts. $1 doesn't buy as much as it once did. According to the American Institute for Economic Research, $1 in 1971 had 24 cents worth of purchasing power when compared to $1 in 1913. $1 in 2009 had about 4 cents worth of purchasing power on the same scale. This decline is known as inflation, and it isn't restricted to the dollar. However, the dollar is one of the world's most widely used currencies, so change in its value can impact the world in surprising ways. In the US, the Federal Reserve works to stabilize the national economy, preventing too much inflation while ensuring continual growth. At least, that's the working theory. However, some believe this system is broken, and the current state of the economy is about to get much, much worse. Why? Here's where it gets crazy. Inflation and hyperinflation are similar but not identical. Two factors usually cause inflation: the perception of a currency's value and the principle of supply and demand. Back when the dollar was based on gold, inflation occurred when people thought the government and banks couldn't supply the gold the dollar represented. The dollar hasn't been on the gold standard since 1971, making it a fiat currency. This means that it has value through government regulation rather than representing a tangible asset. So what exactly is hyperinflation? According to economist Paul Krugman, hyperinflation occurs when governments can't either raise taxes or borrow to pay for their spending and print more cash, attempting to create revenue by creating money. This can also create a snowball effect, where governments end up printing more and more money that is worth less and less. This is not a fictional scenario. It's happened before, most notably in Germany's Weimar Republic in the early 1920s. During this time, unfortunate citizens raced to spend German marks as soon as possible, because by the end of the day it would be worth less than it was in the morning. A similar situation has occurred in Zimbabwe. Could this happen in the United States?
Yeah, so hyperinflation coming to America. That is the predicament the American economy face right now. See, and this only give purpose to the reason why you see the US desperately trying to start a war, see, on the earth right now, which is the Third World War, which is prophesied in the scriptures. You know what I mean? So all what you see take place in the Ukraine, all what you see take place in the Middle East, seeing, is all about to protect US hegemony. You know what I mean? In which, according to scripture, America gonna be destroyed by thermonuclear fire. Since all the efforts you see them desperately are put out over there in the world using this ISIS madness and all them precursor for war basically is just to bring we in the Third World War, in which them are gonna feel miserably.
What our threats are today, what would you consider the greatest threat to our national security?
My assessment today, Senator, is that Russia presents the greatest threat to our national security. In Russia, we have a nuclear power. We have one that not only has the capability to violate the sovereignty of our allies and to do things that are inconsistent with our national interest, but they're in the process of doing so. So if you want to talk about a nation that could pose an existential threat to the United States, I'd have to point to Russia. And if you look at their behavior, it's nothing short of alarming.
See, no, Russia is one of the leading natural gas and oil seller in the world. See, in Europe, basically, Russia basically supply certain parts of Europe with natural gas and oil, and Ukraine are one of the main route where the oil is channeled through.
Russia is Europe's single biggest source of imported gas that comes along transit pipelines such as Brotherhood, all of them under the monopoly control of the Kremlin. That gives Russia a lock on the transit countries of Eastern Europe, like Ukraine, and also close and cosy business ties with national energy companies in Western Europe, particularly Germany, Austria and France. Growing European gas dependence on Russia further would suit the Kremlin fine, so it's pushing two new pipelines, Nord Stream in the Baltic and South Stream across the Black Sea. Both are hugely expensive compared with doubling up the existing land-based routes, but they do cut out those troublesome transit countries.
See, so you know why Ukraine get destabilized and the American them heavily involved in trying to cut off Russia from getting the oil down through Ukraine, because Russia basically already selling oil to Europe, which basically if Russia can make deals with oil nations not using the US dollar, seeing Russia gonna profit and US gonna get locked out of the whole business, yeah? So Russia gonna have a monopoly upon selling oil into Europe, seeing basically further leading factors were sure that it's inevitable that we're going to this face-off between America and Russia. Yeah, seeing, so it's a do or die situation America been faced with right now, seeing, because of them other trade deals here where actually take place, seeing, where basically Xing out America as a part of the middleman between the trading, or the mediator, the US dollar as the mediator between trading scene. So that's what we really want to bring out. So that with that we say, all praises to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh, double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone. Shalom to all the brothers that are out there. Basically, I do the work of the Lord in sincerity and in truth. Shalom.